Steve Palmer has always been successful in the Charleston restaurant business, and even to this day. But early on in his career, he battled a personal demon, alcoholism. I talked to him about that in his new book for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and download my free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores.
Steve Palmer.
How are you?
One of the most influential people in this town.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't know about that, but thanks so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
I talk about influential. Obviously, you are powerful when it comes to the restaurant business. Obviously, you own several restaurants around here.
Sure.
And I didn't even know you owned Mercantile and Mash.
Yeah.
Which is right around the corner from my house. And obviously now you have your book, Saved Grace. And I know that the Charleston City paper recently wrote this about this. It says this quote, Indigo Road Hospitality Group founder and managing partner Steve Palmer released his debut memoir, Saved Grace, How the Restaurant Business Saved My Life. And obviously that was released on Tuesday, November 19th. Steve Palmer, the author.
I know, it's a little strange. I don't see myself as an author. I'm a storyteller, maybe, because the book is about my life. So it wasn't like I had to dream up content, right? I just sort of wrote about my story. People have asked, well, are you happy with it? Or do you think it's good? And I've said, when you're writing about your life, I don't think you could ever 100% objectively say, this is good or this is bad. It's my life. And the goal of the book is to move the mission of Ben's Friends, our nonprofit that supports people in the restaurant business that are trying to find recovery from drugs and alcohol. And so, to the degree that the book is reaching people and I am getting emails, and even if I reach one person, then it was all worth it. But I don't know that I'll ever be able to say author. Somebody said to me the other day, well, it was number one. It was a number one new release on Amazon. So you're a number one, a best-selling author. And I'm like, oh, listen, I'm a restaurant guy. At the end of the day, I'm still the guy that busses tables and washes dishes and serves others, which is what I think why I've found so much love in this business is I love serving other people.
Yeah, that's so amazing. You talk about obviously your life and the new book. How is your life after this book has been published?
Well, I run into people, total strangers that have read the book, and it's hard for me to put into words. A lot more people. I didn't know that thousands of copies of this book were going to get sold in the first week. So it's influencing people. And listen, what a better legacy to have. And I'm not saying I have it yet, but it's the goal. If all people remember 30 years from now, they may not remember Oku or the Macintosh. I hope they do.
Sure.
But hopefully Ben's Friends will outlive that. And that's what I've said to Mickey Bass, my co-founder, is, this should outlive both of us. So I said this earlier this morning. For me, it's a privilege to give back. It's not a burden. It's not a right, it's a privilege. And so the restaurant business has done so much for me. I mean, I was homeless at one point in my life. I endured some pretty hard living, and the restaurant business welcomed me. And I always say this, what I love about the restaurant business, you don't have to have a college degree. It doesn't matter where you're from. Doesn't matter if you grew up with money or without money. As long as you're willing to work hard and be a part of the team, there's a place for you. And that's why I love our business so much.
So much. Obviously, you said you were homeless and you dealt with, bouts of alcoholism.
Yeah.
How did you get here?
I don't. God's grace. Honestly, the love of other people in the business. I was a product of an intervention. Hank Holliday, that owns Planters Inn and Peninsula Grill. I was the general manager there, And I came to work one day and he said, you have a choice. You can clean out your office or you can go to rehab. And addiction is a terrible thing because it's a disease of the mind. It lies to you. And every fiber of my being wanted to stand up and storm out of that office and go get a drink. Honestly, that was my physical response. For some reason, I said, you know what, I'll do it. I'll go. I didn't necessarily believe in myself. I didn't necessarily think you could be in the restaurant business and not drink. Certainly 18 years ago, we weren't having these kinds of conversations. Mickey, my good friend, he had not moved here yet. So I literally knew no one. But I did. I went that day and I'm here because people in the industry cared for me when I couldn't care for myself.
Yourself.
And I really believe that.
I want to go to actually an expert from your book that the City Paper published recently. It says this, quote, these symptoms didn't go unnoticed. The owner of the restaurant, Hank Holiday, called me into his office. The chef was there too. The looks on their face told me that they meant business. And you just mentioned this, quote, you have a choice to make and you're going to make it right now. There's a bed waiting for you in rehab. Either you go home now and pack your bag, or you can start cleaning out of your office. I tried bargaining. You tried bargaining.
I tried bargaining. That's how insidious addiction is. I found that a lot of the people I talk to that are at the end, they know their life is not working on some level, whether they've gotten DUIs or whatever. Things are not working. Alcoholism, and I hear it all the time. Well, if I just don't drink shots, if I only drink on the weekends, if I only drink red wine, it's this and that's addiction. I say this all the time. It's the only disease that tells you don't have a disease. So cancer patients are not walking around saying, I don't have cancer, what are you talking about? But there's millions of alcoholics that are walking around saying, I'm fine, and they're not fine. And so that's, to me, the insidious nature of alcoholism. I don't think alcohol's bad. We sell alcohol every night.
Sure.
My wife drinks. She doesn't have the genetic predisposition. But it's bad for me, and it's bad if you have the disease. You have it, and it's not going away. And so it's coming to that moment where you're willing to accept that fact and do something about it. I always say, I'm glad I got the gift of desperation. And people, meaning I was willing to do whatever it took. And when you can get there, then that's when your life can really change.
When Hank called you into his office along with the chef and whatnot, what level of your life were you on?
I had to drink to get out of bed. I would shake in the mornings. So just to shave, I would have to calm, and here's the crazy thing that anybody on the outside would go, I didn't think anybody noticed. I literally, because I always went to work, through the homelessness and through everything, the restaurant business was my one constant. I had a broken childhood. Father died at 10 years old. It was the one thing that was always there. So I always showed up. I could have been out all night with no sleep and I would show up. Now the lie is I thought nobody noticed, right? And you just can't live that life for long before people aren't like, you look terrible. And so my life, I was stage 4 alcoholic. I had to drink every day. I did a lot of cocaine. I did a lot of drugs, but and thought that I was handling. I thought I was a functional alcoholic. I was absolutely not functional.
Ooh, my God. I remember. Oh, you talk about this in the book. Actually, you said this quote. I don't remember getting into bed, though I do remember waking up with a pounding headache and calling the coke dealer the first thing. I didn't want to buy drugs. I didn't want to keep drinking. What I wanted was to get sober. But the inconvenient truth was that I just couldn't. Sobriety wasn't in my power. I was lost and alone. So lost and alone that I couldn't get my life together, much less get sober. I wasn't capable of sober living. Sober living.
Yeah.
How did you get sober with a coke dealer at that time?
So the intervention happened. there's a saying in the recovery community that you can't think your way into sober living. You have to live your way into sober thinking, meaning that you got to get you got to get the bottle, you got to get rid of the bottle first.
Right.
So that is a process. If you spent a decade, in my case, 2 decades, drinking and drugging, you don't stop drinking for 30 days and suddenly your mind's clear and everything is right in the world. It is a journey that takes a long time. The first thing that had to happen is I had to get away from the drug dealer, and I had to get put into a safe environment where we could physically get everything out of my system, then start to work on the psychological issues that, listen, you don't end up an addict. There's root causes that have to be addressed. The alcohol and the drugs are the symptom. So it is a journey. It's a long journey, but a beautiful one nonetheless.
Nonetheless, between the intervention and obviously going to rehab, what did you replace? I might not be saying this right. What did you replace drug and alcohols with?
Yeah. So it's funny. Sobriety work, going to 12-step recovery meetings, the gym.
Oh yeah.
There's for not everyone, but I'm laughing because we laugh about it. There's a lot of sugar in alcohol, and so there's a phenomenon. It's kind of a funny phenomenon that when you sober up an alcoholic, they have a sweet tooth, and many of them will say, I never had a sweet tooth when I was drinking. Well, that's because there's so much sugar in alcohol. So there was a lot of Ben and Jerry's in that first year of sobriety. But you find your way. It's again, you got to first get the drugs and alcohol out. Then it really is about learning to live, and that is a lifelong process. But it's about learning to live a healthier mindset, seeking things that are better for you, whether it's exercise, meditation, church for some, not for all, but church for some. I'm still learning to replace. 18 years later, it's still a journey of self-discovery and figuring out, finding the best version of myself, right?
Of yourself.
Which I'll be doing as long as I'm on this planet.
Right.
For sure.
I hope God you live a long time.
I do too.
Yes, sir. You talk obviously about the restaurant business. I want to go off to the side right there because obviously you've been in it for a long time.
Long time, about 35 years.
What is the biggest difference between 35 years ago and right now when you think of the restaurant business?
Wow. Well, 35 years ago, we didn't have Top Chef. We didn't have foodies.
Right.
We didn't have social media.
Right.
We didn't have phones, the cell phones at least.
Right.
You know what? I think the real positives that have come in the last, I think we're more of an industry that's taken seriously, which I appreciate as someone that loves the business. I think in the last 5 years, whether it's the Me Too movement, this mental health conversation, I think we're sort of cleaning our industry up. So on one hand, I would say the industry's never been more popular, meaning people go out to dinner more now. They're more educated. You look at like the craft cocktail movement, the craft beer movement. There's a sophistication to our industry, period. That didn't exist. We have breweries on every street, which is great. I mean, so there's such a higher level of engagement in our business, and I think that's really great. The challenge is the amount of people that want to work in the business has not grown proportional to the amount of restaurants that people are dining out at. So we're at this real tough moment where we don't have enough people to work. And so our challenge as employers is, yes, we can talk about recruitment, but it's really about how are we a better employer so that people want to stay. And I think that that's going to continue to evolve. The whole chef celebrity thing has happened. I mean, you've got chefs now that are as famous as musicians,
right?
And so that's a real phenomenon, and that's the last 10 years,
right?
Where you're seeing these chefs with hundreds of thousands of followers on social media, and they're recommending cookware, and and now corporate America is branding with these chefs.
Sure.
So it's a great time to be in our business, but we need more people.
Huh.
Yeah.
How do people stay with you, with your company, Indigo Road Hospitality Group?
So the thing that I think that I always say, sometimes a restaurant group can be criticized. It's a big thing. It's not as personal. What I love is that there's opportunity here. We if you want to grow, it's here. We're constantly thinking about new business. There is, we've made people partners in the business. We help people buy homes. We have a home loan buying program where we loan the employee the money interest free. We make no money on it.
Okay.
And so I always say, listen, if you want a career in this industry, you don't ever have to leave. We're in different cities. We're doing different cuisines. We're open to new ideas.
Sure.
So I think that's where being a restaurant group is really attractive. Yeah.
I talked with Anthony Bernardo a couple of months ago for Quintin Ups, and we talked about social media reviews, Yelp, TripAdvisor. How do you, Steve, deal with that?
So we have a lot of them, right? Because there's a lot of restaurants. I really ask the management to engage every day. Engage with positive reviews as much as the negative ones. There's a lot of platforms like Yelp where someone will leave a negative review. We immediately say, the manager will say, this is my cell phone. Please call me. We want to make this right. If this was truly your experience, we want to make this right. The percentage of people that actually call is the disappointment for me on social media reviews. Listen, I love social media. It is our platform, right? And so you can't love the positive stuff people say and then just completely dismiss the negative.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're going to believe the good reviews, you got to believe the bad reviews.
Sure.
Do I, and one of the first questions I always ask somebody when they leave a bad review, did we stop by the table and ask you if everything was okay? Because we would have much rather fixed it for you in the moment. If you said, I don't like this, can I have something else? We'll take it off the check. We're going to, so that's to me, like, I think as an operator who wants to do good, the frustration is when people will go to a platform like that, they will broadcast their experience, which can be 100% not accurate. There can be some subjectivity to,
right.
Is that really what happened? Or are you doing this to be inflammatory?
Right.
But, that's what I would say to anybody. Listen, if you're going to leave a review and it's not good, if we reach out to you, let us fix it.
Sure.
And if we do fix it to your satisfaction, write another review and say, you know what, I didn't have a good first time. And I do see that on social media, and I'm always happy when somebody says, listen, I'll stand by my original review, but I want to say that I went back and it was a much better, because I think when consumers are looking, maybe they're traveling to a city they don't know, so they're going to go to Eater, Yelp, Open Table.
Yeah.
I think if they see that the restaurant is engaging in the negative stuff, as a consumer, at least I know somebody cares and somebody's listening. The frustrating thing, and Anthony is a good friend of mine, is the people that just lash out and they have no interest in actually letting you make it right. And I would say on some of these platforms, like, it's about 10% of the people actually call us back. And that's disappointing, because if we're trying to make it right with you, at least give us the opportunity. I mean, I don't think anything happened that was so bad in one of our restaurants that you can't let us try and fix it.
And let me go back to what you said earlier about obviously people growing in the company. I know that obviously you have new ideas. What new ideas do you have next for this company?
So a couple of things I believe. I think that as I personally get older, don't think I'm old, we need to continue. The restaurant business is a business of youth, and I say it all the time. There are things that are classic. Oak is 15 years old. I bet Oak will be 50 years old. There are things in American dining culture that will live on forever. Do I think all of our restaurants are going to live on forever? Probably not. I think we need to be listening. We're at a really great time where conversations like diversity inclusiveness are much more at the forefront. I think that younger chefs who have different backgrounds, we need to be listening to them. What kind of restaurant do you want to do? What kind of food is inspiring you? I think we're at a real interesting time where when I came up in the business, things were much more in a box. In other words, this is a French restaurant. This is an Italian restaurant. Now there's Southern restaurants with Korean food on it. There's this cross-cultural, we're at this real cross-cultural moment. I think that's going to continue to evolve. I think from an ethnic cuisine point of view, Charleston still has some work to do.
Okay.
When I was in New York last night. Yeah. So we've still got some work to do. So my new ideas are more about listening to the younger generation and what they're thinking about. I bring the wisdom of age and the business experience, because that's the other thing with cuisine, right? I always say that a chef, it's when art meets commerce. Mm-hmm. Chefs are very creative people and they want to do creative things, and that's beautiful. But you have to have people that are willing to pay for that art. In other words, if you're creating the most beautiful dish of food, but enough people don't want to eat that dish, not because it's not good, it just doesn't have that appeal, that's how restaurants go out of business. Wow, so it's navigating those waters. We're going to be getting into the hotel business next year, so that's another exciting growth opportunity in the Indigo Road. There'll be an announcement, so I'm breaking it to you.
Right here.
Right here, I'm breaking it. We're going to get into the hotel business, so that's exciting. Listen, we're always going to continue to grow. I get bored quickly, so I'm and I like challenges. I like thinking about things. We're not perfect all the time. We've done some restaurants that haven't done as well as others. So we're going to continue to grow, and I think it's exciting. Exciting. Yeah.
When you look back at this book again, Say Grace, what else do you want to say to people now?
So one of the reasons that the tagline is how the restaurant industry saved my life. It not only was it the intervention that Hank did, but I actually say it saved my life twice. I was a really broken kid when I found the business in my early 20s. And what I found was acceptance, love. I was welcome. And, our industry has taken a lot of negative hits in the last 5 years. The Me Too movement, some big high-profile chefs have done some really awful things. Yeah. This book is kind of my love letter to our business, because I literally wouldn't be talking to you today had I not found the business. I'd be dead. Mm. And I know that as much as I know my name is Steve. So, our business is wonderful, and it's filled with wonderful people. And I don't think we talk enough about, think of how many charity events happened in Charleston this year where millions of dollars were raised for very worthy causes. Who was doing the cooking? The chefs in this community were. And I don't feel like that gets talked about enough. So, yeah, that's what I hope. I hope people, yes, read my story, but I hope people go, wow, what an incredible business. That they cared for Steve when he didn't know how to care for himself. Mm-hmm. And that's happening all over the country and all over the world. Restaurant people we're the best people.
Yes, I agree.
We're the best people.
That's right.
I mean, we care deeply about things. Sure. And I think that should be applauded.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Well, the Honorable Steve Palmer, thank you for your time, and welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.